You're listening to Cottontail's podcast, part of the Silicon Valley Black Project, which produced the documentary film A Place at the Table about the Black pioneers of Silicon Valley. A Place at the Table can be viewed for rent on Vimeo.com on demand /A Place at the Table STEM. Through Cottontail's podcast, the Silicon Valley Black Project will continue to recognize the contributions made by African Americans. We will be featuring African American professionals, technologists in the fields of engineering, administration, and entrepreneurial pursuits from the past and present. Today, we are examining the history of Mr. John Hall, a retired executive of DuPont. John's story is one of being the first African American hired by DuPont as a salesman. His first sales assignment was in Portland, Oregon. He overcame sundown laws and racial prejudice in the Northwest. John became a favorite with the DuPont customers while opening doors for other African Americans to enter the salesman's ranks.
My parents migrated to California in 1942, and we lived in Oakland initially, and we were there probably 8 to 10 months. And then from there, my mother moved to Berkeley, California, and I was in Berkeley all the way through middle school. My last year of middle school, which we'll say is the 8th grade, my grandmother, who was the matriarch of the family, decided that she wanted to move to Los Angeles and asked would I accompany her there because she was by herself. And quite naturally, I had 2 younger offsprings and had to share the bedroom, so I jumped on that idea. So we moved to Los Angeles. We were one of the first families to move to the west side of Los Angeles on 51st and Van Ness. And we were the only, coloreds at that time in the area. And from there, I started my last, I think, half a year in middle school at Audubon and middle school. And Audubon, at that time, I think there were 5 black youngsters or young people at that school when I went there. And, it was sort of eye-opening, the way things were going on, because you could tell you were, somewhat out of the rim of what they preferred in Los Angeles. But from there, I went to manual arts, and manual arts, I think, was the first opportunity I had to really express myself, see other blacks, and really become familiar with the greater Los Angeles area.
So you're saying that the black community then made you feel more comfortable in Los Angeles? More
comfortable in Los Angeles because I'm beginning to interface with more of people of my color and so forth. As a matter of fact, that's where I met Mr. Al Cotton.
Is it?
Yeah, right. We both went into manual arts at the same time. And, we had a very large class, so we tended to stick together all the way through high school. What I mean by that is I think we had 400 or 500 kids that were in the same grades through that period of time.
Wow.
And so that was an interesting time because, I grew up quite a bit in that period of time at Manual. And from Manual, I went out to City College for a year, I think. I enjoyed school at that time. So I take early morning classes. I take evening classes. So I finished almost a year earlier than my normal class. But at that time, the school board would not allow you to do that. So at 16, I got a 4-4 plan, which allowed me to work in the community for 4 hours a day. So I'd go to school from, in the mornings I had 2 regular classes, plus I had to have a PE class, and the last class I don't know what it was because I never had a shop class, so it must have been something just to occupy my time, homeroom or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I went to City College at 16, and the eye-opening thing there was the girls were all older than me, you know.
Yeah.
And I had enough trouble at home with mother and my grandmother there, you know. So, in high school, it was fairly easy for me. I was pretty much a straight A student.
Mm-hmm.
And, but when I got to City College, I said, "Oh, this is not happening," you know. So I'll never forget that I said, "I think I'm going to go in service. That'd be the best thing because it'll get me away from home, and I can recover my life standing, so to speak, from the
Yes.
girls and so forth."
Right.
So when it became, I think at 17 and a half, you had to have your parents, they had to okay for me to go into service.
Okay.
So with a lot of back and forth and with these two women in my life, I finally convinced them, because I had my boss convince them that it would be okay, and I would grow up and all this good stuff. And at the time, I was really referring to going to the Air Force. And at that time, the Air Force was like a regular 8-to-5 job. And you took a big exam that would identify those areas that you might greatly benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, I told the recruiter, I said, "I'll do anything, but I don't want to be a cook, and I don't want to be an air police. I'd be damned if they didn't make me an air police."
Of course.
But as it turned out, that was probably one of the better positions I could have had, because of the 4 years I had so many different assignments that it really was a productive thing for me, because when I got out, I had opportunities to go with any police department within the states. They were all giving me calls and so forth. So anyway, I went in service for 4 years basically, and I remember when I got through with basic training, I remember asking the TI, where would I be going for my technical training? And he says, "Well, you're going to stay right here because this is where the air police train." So I stayed there for another 10 weeks. And when it came time for actual assignments, I remember saying to the guy, I said, "Are there any air bases in California?" He says, "Does a dog have fleas?" He said, which is to say there were quite a few.
Right.
And anyway, I got assigned as my first duty station to Long Beach Municipal Airport.
Oh, what a...
You couldn't have asked for a better job,
Right.
But it turned out to be the worst job, because we were not doing the right things at that place, But we were just a party of, I think, about 50 regular Air Force personnel,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest were reserved.
So you're saying that we really weren't safe on the West Coast with this
It
group.
really wasn't, because we weren't where we were supposed to be. We'd always be somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And what really brought it to its head was one evening, I and another person was on patrol, and we were downtown at the Long Beach Circle. That's where they had the big drive-ins, and all the teenagers hung out and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And that combination, as well as when the Grunion were running down there, we were supposed to have been guarding what few planes we had on base.
Yes.
We'd be down there, And I'll never forget what the other guy who I was with, he backed into a car, because we was in this doggone restaurant. He backed into a car. It was a big, beautiful yellow Corvette. And I just knew, I said, "Oh, God, we are in trouble now." The local police, whom we knew because they were reservists,
Okay.
they went inside and brought the guy out who owned the car. He was drunk as a skunk, and he said, "No problem, we took off." But it was, listen, there was 2 identified air police vehicles in the city of Long Beach. So we knew he could find us,
Right.
But he never did. But anyway, from that, they decided that it would be best to separate me and my partner, and they sent me to Turkey, of all places, And at that time, it wasn't the best location because it's so isolated.
Right.
But I spent 2 years in Adana, Turkey. And it was quite a learning process, because over there it was a type of a base that was a NATO base. So you had all military on there,
Mm-hmm.
as well as civilians. And that's actually the base that the U-2 took off from.
Wow.
But so it was a lot of interesting assignments that occurred, and I had to travel up and down from the base to downtown and do downtown patrols and so forth. And I also took advantage of this period of time just to get out the countryside and to see more of Turkey, because we were isolated and nobody ever dared go into the towns. But I just took it upon myself to do that. So I spent 2 years, and I had to spend a little extra time there because there was a court martial occurred that I was a party to, so I had to spend an extra month. But I left there, and they shipped me to. Well, most of the guys that left at the same time went to Korea, and I went to Roswell, New Mexico.
How did you avoid Korea?
Very fortunately, I did.
All right.
But anyway, I went to Roswell, New Mexico, and at that time it had the reputation of being the base where they had aliens supposedly had crashed into, and they were storing all the stuff there.
Yeah.
I never saw it.
Yeah.
Never saw it. But while I was there for about a year and a half. We were building satellite bases. They were out surrounding the city up in the hills and so forth. And we had trouble with quite a few of the satellites working properly. And some of the guys would say, "Oh, I saw something, you see that on the fence line?" These black boys was making up ideas, just to make
I
up.
synced it.
I synced it, they said, But we had 12 of these silos around the city of Roswell, and I probably worked around 4 of them, and I never really had an issue, but I knew that some of these guys were very serious about what they thought they saw,
Yeah.
and they wanted me to stay on and go to NCO prep school, and basically that would require me getting new uniforms and so forth, but what they didn't know, I had other plans, and those plans was to get out of here.
And out of it. Okay.
So I had spoke with my sister and my mother to see if I could get into summer school at UCLA. And I was scheduled to get out of the Air Force in September, but I wanted to get out early so I could go to summer school. So I got out like July the 1st,
Wow.
and I had to be in California at UCLA the following. And that lasted fine. But the thing that got me was that all of a sudden, all the girls who were going to UCLA, they seem to be so young and stupid. I said, God, oh my,
You can't win with the women.
I can't win. Boy, I tell you, this is bad.
But wait a minute. Now, what was the timing of your military service? Weren't you there when the Cuban Crystal?
I was there because that was a key point in my life because of the fact that many people to this day do not realize how close we came to a nuclear war. But I was there in October when that occurred, and I have to tell you, there was one of 12 satellites around the city, and our responsibility was that if in case they had to be launched, our duties was to get off and run as far as we could down the highway to make sure you stop all traffic coming back and forth. And quite naturally, we'd have assistance from the local state police. But
Right.
And as many times as I had been on that place where they had maintenance for these things, it would take them half a day to lift them big old those concrete barriers up. That morning, we had gotten off, and we got out there, and as we pulled through that gate, the alarm went off, and those silos, which normally takes half of the day to get up, they were zoom. They were up, we said, oh, and then they wrote, here comes the big satellite up, steam coming up, vapors coming out. And I said, oh my God, this is it. And what we knew was that anything that we shot toward whatever the target we had, most of it was Russia.
Yeah.
There was one coming right back to us. Theoretically, we were within 15 minutes of nuclear war. Within 15 minutes, and this was happening throughout the world.
Yes.
So I knew this was it, But fortunately, they came to a conclusion that it was not good for either one of them to succeed.
Nobody was going to survive.
Right, so they called that off. But I was there during that period of time.
Yeah.
We survived that.
Yeah.
We survived that, and as I said, I went on and got out of service, went to UCLA for this first semester of summer school, and I just thought for sure, this is 1963, and Vietnam was just beginning to show its ugly head. We had advisors over there, but not a lot of troops over there. I think it was in September, they were beginning to send a lot of troops going on. So I said, these young guys, they're going over. Hell, I'm out. I can do anything. I can find me a job and all this good stuff. Kathy, I couldn't find a job to save my soul during that period of time because all the jobs I was virtually applying for, like management training jobs,
Yes.
they weren't accepting young folks of color. and that made it tough. So I started taking city exams. For anything that the city had posted, I take the exam.
Right.
I did pretty well with it stuff, you know. Some of them I went through there, did well, scored well, but it came time for the oral part of it. I said, hey,
you show up.
Yeah. But the one that they really felt that I should have followed was the police department. So I got phone calls from, at that time, I think Parker was of the Los Angeles Police Department. He called me specifically. He says, listen, we've seen your scores, and you have one of the highest scores we've seen. And we'd like to at least give you an opportunity to take a look at us and so forth. And right after that, the sheriff called me.
Wow.
You know, and they all said, well, you know, we need young men like you, you know. And, you know, I was thinking about that now. My grandmother said, boy, that's suicide, you know. You know? Because most of the young blacks they were bringing in, they would initially go into narcotics, undercover.
Undercover, yes.
And that's the part that turned me away from that, because I did have a friend who was in that department, came by my house. In fact, he went to high school with Al and I, but he had went in earlier. He had been in a couple of years, and he said, John, he came by the house, this little low-riding Ford, had a bandana on his head, coming there. I said, who is this? He looked the part of the club.
He was a police.
He was an undercover police at that time, but he had sense to say, you don't want this.
Yeah.
You don't want this.
Because I'm sure he didn't want it.
Yeah. And I finally got a job with the LA Board of Education, and I observed the fact that the best jobs for students were as janitors at the elementary school level, from 3 in the afternoon till 11:20 or something like that at night. I'm through with the job. Come 5 o'clock, I'm done.
Yes.
So I have all that study time, you know, and there was nobody there but me, you know.
That's right.
The principal took a liking to me, and we had the regional offices at the same school locations, and I just think the way I presented myself, I should have opportunities and so forth.
Right.
And I'll never forget the teachers this was their first year of doing that modern math, and they were scuffling with it. And I'm pushing the boom down the hall, and I'm hearing them scuffling with it. You know, I had the class already, so I'm going down the hall listening to them scuffling, and I finally said, "No, I got to go in there.
Got to help.
I got to help them." So I went in there and said, "Listen, you know, you got to keep in mind, you have preconceived ideas about math. These young kids that you're talking about, they have no other ideas. They'll pick up on this stuff and like nothing, you know." So all that led to the point that I had a pretty good reputation around that education, around the teachers and the principal and so forth. The head of the custodians came around. You make a good union man. Boy, we need people like you in the union, you know. My concentration at that time was on management type positions. All the papers had this assignments for management trainees. Well, when you applied for it, they come to find out, well, you don't have enough background. You know, I said, well, how are you going to get background? The trainee job, you know?
Right.
And they said, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that. So I ended up getting a part-time job with the Urban League. So they brought me in, and what they did is myself and several others, young black guys who were in college, they put us through this program, and hell, we took every test that they offered, you know, that these management companies were offering and so forth. So we had the answers, and then we'd go and apply for the job, you know. So I remember going for this one job. I took the test, but they were smart and slick, because my exam time, I would be placed in there with some of the typists and so forth. It's a time deal. No way could I finish this thing, you know. And they always said, answer as best you can and answer as many as you can. But when I got through, I had done pretty good, because I knew pretty much the answers on it. And I remember the guy that got my paper, and he took a look at that. He said, well, I'm sorry. Let me say, I'm sorry. Give me a moment. He had to go back out because I had scored pretty good.
Passed it.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly. You know, they told me, well, you need to come back. You did pass the score, but you know there are other things that from a management trainee program that you got to go through. Well, Urban League was trying to find jobs for other people, and a DuPont job came up. You know, and myself and another fellow headed out to DuPont. But before I got there, I was given another assignment at Lilly Chemical Company. I made the wrong turn, and I ended up at DuPont. And the long story short, I didn't get to Lilly for about 3 or 4 years later. I went to Lilly's. I was on a different assignment with DuPont.
Okay.
But DuPont was hiring with the idea that you were going to be a distribution, but basically it was going to be a stepping stone for better management slots. So I said, I'm going to stick with DuPont, And so I stayed with DuPont, and I worked in distribution for a year. They knew I was in college, and they did everything they could to help me because there were classes I couldn't take at night, and I think the last 2 classes they were only taught in the daytime. So I went in and told the manager I'm going to have to quit because school was more important for me. He said, "No, you ain't going to quit. We'll give you a leave of absence." It was great, and they also maintained my medical benefits during that period of time. So this was like during the summer because they asked me, "Well, when do you think you would finish? And when are your classes going to end?" And I said, "Sometime in September. I'll be ready for this coming Monday." And I went back, prepared to go back in distribution until such times I could. They either was going to give me something else or whatever. And so I went back in that Monday, and the boss called me in, the manager of the facility called me in, and he says, we have a program, we have something that we think you will fit. We're going to offer you a sales position. Okay. And the first thing it says sales position, I'm thinking about the Watkins man. You work around selling bushes and
banging on doors.
I said, "No, I don't think I want that one either." He says, "No, I'm not talking about that type of sales. You're going to be, running a whole district with the responsibilities of building sales and so forth, and working with customers and so forth."
Yeah.
So they put me in training, and at that time I was the only black. And this is why I said it was such a significant issue, because some of the people from the corporate in Wilmington were coming out just to meet me, and my regional manager had come down, and I would be sitting in there, they'd be talking about me. I'm saying, "I don't know."
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yeah, because I'm right here. I can hear this.
I can hear.
But it was a significant move for them at that time because they hadn't put any minorities out in the field at that time. So by this time, they'd explained the job, and I knew, working with the salesman there in Los Angeles, I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do when it came to sales, because some of the guys would be yes men. I mean, they would be on their knees when they go and pray, "Will you do this for me?" And other guys were smooth, But quite naturally, I like those smooth guys, So anyway, we went through that, and they knew, but they said, "Are you willing to relocate?" And by this time I was married, quite naturally, and I had a 2-year-old son. And they said, "Well, because there's a good possibility that you could relocate." But fortunately, there was a director in corporate offices in Wilmington who was involved in all this, and he says, "Well, I got an opening in Portland, Oregon."
Okay.
And so they came back, but before they would tell me I was going to Portland, Oregon, my most immediate manager called me in and said, "Oh yeah, we got an assignment for you." And he said, "You're going to Jackson, Mississippi." I looked and I said,
excitement and thrills.
Right. And I said, "Well, if the company feels I can be productive there, I can do the task that they asked me to do in Jackson, Mississippi, that's where I'll go." And he said, "Oh, no, you're not going there. You're going to Portland, Oregon." Lo and behold, they had no idea what was going on in Portland and Seattle and all through there,
No.
So I went up there, and quite naturally, the manager there met me at the airport and took me to the office and introduced me around. Everybody was looking and so forth. And only black kid up there. I was a kid at that time too. And so he said, "Well, we're going to go out and show you some places where you might want to live," and all white, and so that's where we started,
Okay.
So by this time, the wife, Cheryl, had decided to join me and so forth, and she came up, and we said, "I know there's some black folks in this town." So we came back across into Portland proper and was on Union Avenue. That was the major street, because I was really looking for a barbershop.
Right.
And we said, "Well, there's got to be a barbecue place around here." We saw a sign. said barbecue.
All right.
So we went that way. Couldn't smell no barbecue. We said, "This, I don't know about this."
Do they know what barbecue
Yeah,
is?
you know what I'm saying. You know, said I finally got me a haircut over there and met some of the black young men over there at this barber shop, and they, you know, we was talking about what do you do and all this good stuff, and I told them, I says, well, you know, I'm a salesman and I travel up and down the state talking to customers. I say I'm responsible for Northern California, Oregon, and Southern Washington. They stopped. They said, "What? You take 5 down to Medford and Ashland?" I said, "Yeah, I'm you know, I'm just leery of what's causing all that."
Huh.
They didn't find out. They wouldn't leave Portland. You know, I said, and I remember coming back and telling sure these boys are scared, and they got them all locked up over there on
Right.
Union Avenue. I had no clue as to the history of it, you know,
Yeah.
and I didn't find out a lot of stuff until maybe a year or so later when things began to surface. But during the interim time, people that I work with were so glad to see me because the guy who I'm following had screwed it up so bad. I remember I had to tell you one specific story here because there's a little town outside of Portland called St. Helens. And my boss tried to take me around to introduce me initially,
Yeah.
but something that came up and he couldn't do it. He said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Sir, I don't need you to take me." I said, "I can introduce myself and so forth and so on," because one of the comments he would say was, "I'm not so sure how I should handle you. You know, we never had a black up here." And I said, "Well, just let me handle myself, you know."
Mm-hmm.
But I went to this little town of St. Helens, and when I walked into this shop, he was behind the counter there, and they stopped and they looked at me. I said, "Sir, my name is John Hall. I represent DuPont." Next thing they came, "Get the out of my place." And I backed out. I didn't turn my back on it. You know? I backed out.
Gosh.
So I got in the car and I drove about a block away. I controlled myself and I called him. And I said, "Sir, I just wanted to make sure that we are starting off incorrectly here." I said, "But my name is John Hall and I represent DuPont." He says, "Listen, I apologize. I'm so sorry. Can you come back? It's my fault, but come back." So when I went back there, he turned out to be one of the best fellows I met the entire 4 years I was up there.
Did he ever explain why he was screaming at you?
Yes, he did.
But,
The reason why I did stop and call back was I had run into some of these kind of issues. I'd heard comments earlier than that from people who were mad at DuPont because of the guy who I was replacing. So they were not receptive. DuPont was not a good person for them, you know. So I kind of figured this may have played into this guy's comment. And lo and behold, within that same, you know, we made friends. I was able to deal with the issues he was talking with. Then I moved on.
okay.
Went on down along the Columbia River. There was another customer of mine who happened to be the mayor of the city. What they were saying is that we just do not have minorities up here. We have a Rotary meeting today. Would you mind having lunch with us, and so I can introduce you as the first? We got one. You know,
There's our color, guys.
right? Yeah. So that occurred, and I went with him, and you know they were very cordial about everything. You know, and you know I'm checking them out as well as they checking me out. You know, they were future customers. I looked at that. You know, I was going over to Klamath Falls.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was a small town at that time. You know. So one of the guys who was the salesman, he called on Weed, California, and Alturas, California. Well, those were not in my official district. So I told him, I said, "I'd love to help you, but I'm not sure if I, you know, can do that." So I talked to my manager that we called the San Francisco manager because that was his. And I spoke to the salesman. I said, "Man, do you mind if I do this?" And so forth. Because he made a plan to go down there, and I called on all his accounts. But at that time, I would tell the guy, when we call on an account, we don't go in there empty-handed. They also knew by this time, when I told them I don't be there because I had to travel, I'll say, "I'll be here Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. 8:30, we better be on the road." You know, because I say, basically, if we can sit around and talk sports all morning, and by this time, competitors will be out there. They would have sold everything, you know. And this is why you guys are struggling, you know. And I said, no, we're not going to work that way. I said, we can talk sports when we get back.
Right.
So the other thing I was always telling them, I said, when I come down here with you, let's make sure we take some product with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I assure you, we won't bring it back. Right. And we never did bring anything. We'd sell it. Evenings, I would talk to them about what we did and so forth. And I'd also bring in the people who worked the counters who didn't go outside. And I would be talking a little bit about impulse buying. I said, now, for example, a guy comes in here and says, I want a can of paint. What else can you sell him?
Mm-hmm.
He needs solvent or thinner. He needs sandpaper. He needs all this. They said, oh, we hadn't thought about that.
Is this in your sales training, or is this something you thought of yourself?
Well, it was a part of training, but nobody really exercised. But I just looked at it because I saw it as an advantage.
Yes.
And quite a bit of that was I would put into my routine, right. Because as years passed, when I would work with others, we would call a blitz. We'd blitz another territory. I tell the guys the same thing, and then they would tell their boss, "How come we can't get this guy up here?" I said, "Oh well, you got to be careful. I don't want
to just spread this brown
right,
so far."
Right, exactly. So but one of the good things that behind this was there's another little town. They were mostly farmers, and they'd paint tractors and shit. They'd all come in and meet me at some central port, and either the guy's shop, and we'd talk the product and so forth. And then they said, we're going to meet at this hotel for lunch. But the wives would be there. They done set the table, family style,
Yeah.
We eat. And then after we eat, they bring their little knitting out. They sit around the sides, and I'm talking to the guys, what's going on in life,
Mm-hmm.
So they enjoyed that. When you coming back,
You built community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me. The irony of that, I had a little experience on the chemical side of it, but they thought I was the smartest thing walking. He knows what he's talking about,
Yeah.
And I'm very observant, but I would look at some of the things they were doing and the success they had, and they didn't have all the equipment that some of the better, the dealerships had and so forth, and yet they could put out a clean paint job. I'm looking at how they do that. I take that information, take it to the next shop.
Absolutely.
They said, this man he knows what he's talking about. So it worked out pretty good. But Kathy, the whole 4 years I was there, I never heard the N-word. I had one guy who wasn't happy about me, and that was a guy in Medford, Oregon, who's a Hispanic, and he just didn't like the product. Well, I said, fine, you don't have to use my product. I'm just kind of give you information. So it got to the point, I said, well, okay, we don't have to come here. I tell my distributor, we can avoid stopping at that place.
Right.
The owner of the shop saw me at lunch one time, and he said, I heard, you're not coming around to my shop anymore. What's going on? He said, I hear you done all this with these other guys. And he says, I deserve some attention too. And I said, well, your painter said you prefer not come. He says, you come, Okay. And we went back, and the guy was gone the next time, So
right.
It worked out. And I'm talking with Medford, I'm talking Ashland, and by this time I've got some sense that it was the largest KKK Klan meeting took place up there.
Yes.
Outside of the South.
Right.
It was there.
A lot of people came from the South, and they started the KKK.
Yeah, right.
In Oregon.
Right. I know, but I tell you, I saw a document on TV not too long ago.
Yes.
Where they talked about, the issues with white supremacy and the KKK up in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't know that. I said, had I known some of that, I never would have went. It was an assignment that was different. Whenever I got people from back east corporate, or if I had to go back east, they would all ask me, how you doing? How's your family? Are you having any problems and all that kind of good stuff? As if to say, we know you might have some, but I really never did,
Yeah.
But,
well, tell me now, this really, the story you're telling is you were a first.
Yes.
Now, when you went into this position in Oregon, were you aware that you were going to be the first?
I knew I was the first, but I didn't see the significance of being just the first.
I see.
I really didn't put a lot of attention to the fact that I was the first black to do any of this kind of stuff.
Right.
And but I always say, well, once you get to know me, you're going to find out this guy's pretty good. He's a nice guy, and that's pretty much the attitude that I would take. One of the things I established right away was that I'm here to help you to improve your business. you know. And I say, I will be here during the working hours. You have my full attention. Come 5:30, if we're done with what we got to do, I don't fraternize with the families and so forth. I'll go back to my hotel. I do my paperwork, So I wouldn't be at their homes, and I just told them up front that that's not what I'm here for.
Right.
Eventually, people would ask me to go, but I still didn't. I mean, they never really treated me as if I was something separate, you know. And I was coming back from Klamath Falls, and they were playing this country-ass song, and I was patting my foot. Been here too long. You know?
It's just rubbing off.
It was up 409 or something like that. I've been here too long, you know. When I got home, I had a phone call. My boss, immediate boss, and he says, "Listen, you got to be in San Francisco Monday morning." So I went to. I got a flight to San Francisco. The regional manager met me at the San Francisco airport. He says, before you get too excited, he says, no one's firing you, but let me explain to you. He says, we've tried to show you so much of the picture. Now we're going to show you a little bit more of the picture, you know, which was to say, we want to expand your capabilities. Because I had no conceived ideas, and it was a union plant, and my first assignment was in the production area, which is usually the most chaotic area. That's where they have all the little back, people making mistakes. They put the youngest crowd in there, the problem kids in there, and the foreman just doesn't give a damn, you know. And I recognized right then. I said, well, I don't know this shit. I'm gonna have to rely on them to tell me how to do this, and hopefully they give me the right information. You know? So I started that process, and it worked out pretty well. You know, the guy said, for once we got somebody here who cares about us.
Could you ask them? You didn't come in like a know-it-all.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I said, I'm relying on you now. I said, now, don't be messing with me. Don't put me out there. But I'm going to rely on you just as I want you to feel free to come and ask me and so forth, you know.
Right.
So as I was a first-line supervisor, short period of time.
Yeah.
And the two guys that were the supervisors, one was a graduate from Stanford, PhD from Stanford. The other one was a mathematician, but in due time, they was working for me. It's one of them didn't like it, but that's your problem. I had some of the other bosses who would tell me, "Boy, you must have had a bad conversation with him walking down the hall." I said, "Well, but while there, I was placed in employee relations. I worked every assignment there. You know, they moved me around, and then I ended up rewriting the entire operating procedure manual. I left there 4 years later as the area head in charge of all manufacturing.
Wow.
You know, so that was, and I learned more in that manufacturing role, you know. But now they took the time to provide me training opportunities, because I was forever being sent to some university to take some of that stuff, you know.
Did you notice any other blacks coming in underneath you?
No. But I promoted some blacks from there. Some of these guys, all they need is some guidance. You know, they had not been given the opportunity. I said, wait a minute, let's give him an opportunity to show what he can do.
Right.
And they all proved to be better, you know. We started bringing women in. I had to convince them that it was okay to bring women into these positions. I said, we provide equipment for these men to break these. I mean, we're not asking them to do anything physically that I wouldn't ask a man to do, you know. And we had to prove to them that they could do this. So I make a point to talk to every girl that came in there. This is what is expected of you, you know. And these were black as well as white women that were coming in.
And not one of them turned you down, did
Not the hell. They was a walking God around there.
Right.
You know.
You could do no wrong.
Right, you know. So, you know, so that went on. And I remember Cheryl and I took a trip to Hawaii, and I came back. And the guy said, well, you got to be in Wilmington next week. What? You know. So I went back to Wilmington, and they offered me 2 positions, which was totally unheard of. I could have stayed in the Bay Area and took over the management position that was out there. Or the other thing was I could have stayed in Wilmington in their consulting group. This have any ideas of moving up in this company. At some point, you're going to have to go to the corporate offices.
Oh, that's where they are, in Wilmington. Okay.
Right, yeah. So you're going to have to learn how to do that, and you're going to have to go there. And during that time, I can tell you, Kathy, Wilmington. So I took the position in Wilmington, And they put me in the consulting group. And I said, well, yeah, consulting group, And quite actually, the first thing they did was sent me to University of Pennsylvania to go through the Hay program to learn different evaluations and how you look at the positions. And all. DuPont was made up of 12 companies under one umbrella, And of those 12, I had 5. He helped me in developing some of the programs that I used to help them recognize either you're overboard, you're in the right path, or some of them were way below. So I had to kind of bring them up, because it would be determined on how long you've had the service and what level of position were you. So I stayed in that position from 82. So they called me into the office and said, listen, we got a problem in your old department from the standpoint that they got many problems going on over there.
Yeah.
And would you mind going over there? And what we want you to do is establish an employee relations department over there.
Fun times.
Right. And nobody helped me. Now I'm supposed to establish this
Yes,
stuff.
I hear you.
So I go over there, and quite naturally, and there were guys who I worked with. They said, man, you don't want to go back there. Don't go back there. That good old boy network will lead you up. I can change this.
Sure you can.
Right. I know I can change this. So I went back in there and, starting from scratch, developing a department that could handle all these things.
Yes. And this is still in Wilmington?
This was in Wilmington,
Okay.
corporate office. And the corporate office was the one that was concerned that, this could lead to big monetary fines and restrictions on the corporation. And we had one right here in San Francisco that was big. They had sent this girl out here as a sales rep. We didn't have many girl sales reps at that time. And they positioned her in Fresno, California, calling on all these valley
farm boys.
farm bars and their shops and so forth. Well, she was frightened, but her boss never went out to work with her. He never went out and did anything with her. But the moment one of the distributors called him and said, well, you got to get me and someone else. This young lady she's not living up to this. So basically, he goes out there, he's going to fire the girl. And I got the paperwork on this thing, and he was going to do it. I said, whoa. Show me where you have identified the issues that she was confronted with, and what action did you take?
Right.
Well, he nor the regional manager had done nothing. I said, well, no, you cannot fire her, And I said, the other thing is, you might want to do some things quickly to win her confidence back, I says, right now, either you can relocate her, but the point is that she needs the guidance of a manager, and you haven't done that.
Right.
Now, the consequences of not doing, you both are going to end up losing your jobs and so forth, because, because I could have had that same situation occur to me if I been confronted like that, So anyway, it was things like that, and I stayed in the position of employee relations manager. I think it was 82 to 85.
Okay.
And the assignment in Los Angeles opened up, and that was where I started.
Yeah,
so
that's home base.
Right. So I said, I wouldn't mind doing that. At the time, we had 26 branches like this throughout the country. My branch was like number 17 in performance. When I came out here, they were lacking. The morale was pitiful. Guys that met me at the door saying, I want to get a transfer. I don't want to work here. I said, wait a minute, man, give me a chance, to see what's going on, because I never would have thought that it was going to be that way.
Right.
But now, being number 17 at 26, in 3 years, I had it as number 1. And as number 1, we were providing more income to the company than any other country. Not just the states, but any other country.
Wow.
We had the potential here. We just didn't know how to do it. And at the end, nobody wanted to leave. Guys were calling me, hey, can I come work for you?
Yeah.
But I always told the guys, I said, we're going to work. I expect you to work hard, but we will play hard. We could take them to trading meetings. I said, we can go Palm Springs, we can go to Phoenix, we can go to San Diego. We can go anywhere and have our meetings. And, that was a bonus.
Yeah.
So I said, but we got to earn that. This is not an 8 to 5 gig. I put 12, 14 hours a day in a job. From 5 to 7, you guys are coming in, talking to me about, I need this, and this guy, can you help me with this here?
Right.
I said, I still have work to do that I have to turn in. So I may not leave here at 9 o'clock.
Right.
So if you want my job, I'm going to provide you every opportunity to have my job.
To have this job.
Right, But I said, now, and after 9 o'clock, if we can get out and have us a drink or two, we can do that
We
too.
do that. Well, tell me, in Southern California, that you had this huge operation. What was your main product there?
It was all the automotive products.
Oh, the automotive
All
products.
automotive products. But it wasn't just Southern California.
Ah,
It was Southern California, Nevada,
okay.
Arizona,
I see.
and parts of New Mexico.
So the western
The western
district
area,
or whatever.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It was hard to believe that we would be in 17th and we have the potential here,
Yes, especially if it's automobile product.
Right.
In Southern California alone.
Right, exactly.
LA.
People love cars.
Yes.
And we would sell one product that was popular,
Uh-huh.
and everybody wanted that one product. I said, well, look at all the rest of the stuff that's sitting here.
Right.
I said, I was sitting here to sell products, not a product line,
Right.
but products.
Uh-huh.
So if you can't understand it, so I even talked to their customers and said, listen, if you can't buy my entire product line, I'll take it somewhere else.
Right. Right.
So it was just, that's when I said I knew what I was doing. I knew what I could do if they get the operation. And within a year, we had the guys a free trip to a free cruise. Gave them a little money to spend while they're.
These are your top sales guys?
Right. Well, I take all my sales force.
Oh, all of them?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I thought, I ain't got no top sales guy. And I even took some of the people from the warehouse and just, I said, look, this is a team thing, So,
Yeah.
Yeah. And the companies, they were smart. They would send the guys that they know are failing somewhere else. They send them to me, to fire them. I said,
Oh, to fire them.
Right.
But you turn them around.
I turned them around, So I did that until 92.
Mm-hmm.
And then 92, they asked me to take over the western half of the United States, the distribution network.
Oh, my.
So I had 13 warehouses throughout the country that I had to oversee and so forth. So I did that. It wasn't challenging me to do anything. So then they were having issues with their own people, and from the standpoint of developing their own sales group. Would you mind becoming the director
of training?
Training and development, Because one of the first things I did, there was learning and development centers that I switched, and it became worldwide.
No kidding.
Worldwide. Everywhere you go, it was and even our competitors. Well, that's one thing that DuPont started. You find the competitors are going to be following suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I retired from the training director in 1998.
I see. Just before 2000.
Right. And but I started the next year. Because December 31st was my retirement date.
Mm-hmm.
And that next March, I guess it was, I finally said, enough's enough.
Yeah. But looking back on it, what would you say would be the overarching, how could you describe your career?
I describe my career as kind of unusual. I knew for a fact that no one in DuPont had the opportunities of movement and development as I did.
Why do you think that was?
Well, because I proved to them that I could do it,
okay.
And I proved to them that at every step that they put before me, I would try and do it the best I could,
Okay.
and doing it the best I could was sufficiently satisfactory to those who I was working with,
All right.
So I think that was it. And the fact that I never had a job more than 4 or 5 years, I did something different. That was totally unusual for them, So I had a good career. I had a real positive career, and nothing. There was not really any. The worst job still had some pleasures.
Yes.
Yeah. Now the thing is, I traveled more than I thought I'd ever travel. I had global responsibility as a training person and so forth. And it proved to be a fantastic position. So.
But pretty unique in considering the timing too.
Yes, I was given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to prove myself,
Right.
Because I would always tell them, I'd say, you guys didn't give me anything.
Exactly, you proved it every day.
Every day, And I said, if anything, and I'll use this when I would be talking to my young blacks that I was trying to work with and so forth. And I did that at every step of my level when I left there were blacks in positions.
All right.
You know, and from sales, because I had black sales managers when I left and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I would just give them a chance. You
Right.
know, you have these stereotypes of what you think a black person is. Will prove you wrong every time.
Every time.
You know, so overall, I just think I had a tremendous opportunity. What I found out was that many kids who finish school are not too concerned about the degree that they have, because they get into these corporations. These corporations are going to put you where they think.
Where they need you.
Because the college degree, in my opinion, only told me that I can give you a problem and you know how to go about resolving that problem. So I didn't give a damn if you were a chemist, an engineer, and whatever. The other thing is that most of them never stayed in those curriculums.
That's true.
They moved on to something else,
Yeah.
So I'm saying, well, why aren't we given the same opportunities?
Exactly.
Because the blacks that we were bringing in were coming in from college,
Mm-hmm.
and given the lowest rated positions that they could find. So no, that's not right,
Yeah.
And they would, in turn, would call me. As it became, I became the person that they would call seeking advice. John, what do you think about this? This guy did, and I tell them. So there was a Hawaiian group that when I go over there, they would say, "Hey, John, I know all the people over there." I go around. So, and that was instant gratification for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was, because I had received that throughout my career, where I could be in something and I could see the change that had occurred, and those people who were involved in that would tell me, "Hey, man, you did good here, Jack.
Yeah.
We'll appreciate that."
Yeah.
So.
Did you ever at any time think about racism or prejudice while you were?
I was confronted with it, on occasions and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, I'm better than that.
Okay.
I'm not going to let that get to me,
Yeah.
because I would show them that it was their problem.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
I think every successful black person I've talked to has said, well, it wasn't my problem. I'm not the racist one.
Right.
It was them. They had the problem.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I come to this day. I tell you, I can't resolve those issues.
That's right.
I can't. If you came in here with an attitude, I don't like black people, I can't really address that. But I can tell you, you're not going to bring that into this plant, because somehow it's going to impact the safety of this plant. You don't want to fight and all this kind of stuff. So
Right.
I don't think as a government or as a country we've ever really addressed the racism to the point of what is the bottom line. And I said, when you talk about that, I went to many a black and white management training programs where I would be the only black, and it'd be mostly for white managers,
Mm-hmm.
and my job was to give credence to whatever they said. Did that sound like you? I said, no. Oh yeah, you're on the right track, and so forth. And like I said, I've heard some things that surprised me, and we were talking about names that they'd used, and
Mm-hmm.
we're in Boulder, Colorado, at the university there, and these white guys were talking about what they used to use to refer to black people. I had never heard some of this stuff. You don't want to listen to us, but I've been listening to you,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not going to get involved in that. I'm not going to give you the answer.
That's right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
will verify the fact that I don't like that, or, well, you're on the right track.
Right.
But you got to come to that conclusion.
Exactly.
Many foreigners view me as they would rather deal with me than my white counterpart,
Mm-hmm.
but I was more believable.
Ah.
They said, John, we believe you, but this white guy, he's forever looking down his nose,
There.
and I don't know if I should trust him or whatever, because somewhere along the line he's going to screw us,
Mm-hmm.
But when I know when I'm talking to you, I'm getting a fair assessment of what's going on.
That's wild, huh? Yeah.
And I think there were times when I said, hell with this company.
Right.
But I put too much into it, and why should I go somewhere? I know where the problems are here.
Right.
I don't know where they are over there, so I might have to spend years to find out who all the culprits are over there.
Exactly.
Here, I know where they are.
Right.
I know how to deal with them.
Right. You knew where the bodies were buried.
Right. So, yeah. So.
Well, it sounds like you and DuPont pretty good relationship. And it sounds like you opened up a lot of doors.
Well, we did, and I like to think I did, because not only for black men, but for women, you know.
Yes.
Because, you know, I tried to be fair,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point where I could talk to them, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I learned some lessons about that. I set my office up to the point to where my chair would always be facing them, but never face the door.
Mm.
Table and say, I'm the big guy and I'm the boss.
Mm-hmm.
I sit in the challenge with them.
Right.
What's on? What's happening?
On the same level with them.
Same level with them.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know what you're saying physically. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it says.
Right.
I hear you. I see you and I hear you.
Right. You know.
And that's usually most complaints. They just want to be heard.
Right. Exactly. You know, and
Really
most people
good.
don't have time to hear it.
Exactly.
They don't want to hear it. You know.
And a lot of times I found, once they get it off their chest, they're done. Because if your next question is, what do you want done now? What do you want to happen?
Right.
Well, not really. I just want someone to hear what I said. You know.
Yeah. Or they would have the answer themselves.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or they have worked through the problem and solved it.
Right.
But they just wanted someone to hear it.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Mr. Hall, I must thank you for a very interesting.
Well, I appreciate the time and the conversation that we've had.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you, Mr. Hall, for sharing your story. Being the first is a challenge. Your actions can determine the future hiring practices and salary levels for all those coming behind. One young man wisely said, "It is the silent work that ultimately is the power that gets it done." In your case, your silent, intelligent application of marketing and sales techniques left a legacy for those that followed in your footsteps. Thank you, John Hall, for opening doors for our young men and women. And thank you for listening.